Welcome to the Deep Dive. This is where we take a pile of sources, articles, notes, some research, and really dig in to find the most important bits, the key insights, our mission. Well, it's pretty simple. Give you a shortcut to being genuinely clued in, maybe with a few surprising facts, and hopefully keep you engaged along the way. Today, we're diving deep into Mongolia. It's a nation that's, well, truly fascinating, often complex, and maybe a bit misunderstood. Our sources paint this really vivid picture, sometimes quite stark, of a country dealing with huge challenges, but also celebrating some pretty surprising wins. We'll be touching on everything from, economic power struggles and claims of media control, right through to crumbling infrastructure and even the global spotlight of esports. So the goal today is to pull out the critical takeaways from all this material, giving you a real snapshot of a reality that, frankly, often flies under the radar. It's this mix of serious issues and, moments of real national pride.
Absolutely. And this deep dive, I think, will really show how these different parts of society, government, big finance, youth culture, even the basic stuff like infrastructure, how they're all linked up. Sometimes in ways you wouldn't expect, quite subtle ways. You'll be trying to look past the headlines, really, to get at the underlying forces at play in Mongolia. Because what looks simple on the surface, it often has layers that need a closer look.
Okay, right. Let's unpack this, though. The sources, they kick off with a pretty big claim that Mongolia's news and media landscape is highly controlled by higher authorities. It suggests a deliberate kind of manipulation of information, doesn't it? According to what we've read, corrupt politicians are supposedly buying up major media outlets, so basically getting control of how people get their news. And it doesn't stop there. They're apparently using their clout, their influence over police and legal practices to systematically go after smaller, independent journalists.
Yeah.
To undermine them, maybe even destroy them. It sounds like a real concerted effort, Multiple angles to silence certain voices and control the whole narrative. What does that immediately signal to you about the information environment there?
Well, what's striking straight away is how this control isn't just about, shaping opinion. It's tied directly to power, real power. The sources actually describe Mongolia as operating under a kind of silent dictatorship with a puppet government. Now, that doesn't mean there's no official democracy on paper, but the implication is that the government is run, reportedly, not by the people's will, but by major private interests. We're talking specifically about these financial oligopolies, banks, essentially, where just a few massive banks dominate everything. It makes competition incredibly difficult and puts immense power in just a few hands. And Conbank is flagged as the prime example of this huge, almost unshakable influence. The impact on everyday people is, it's profound when a sector that vital is so locked down.
So if one bank, like Conbank, has that much dominance, what are the actual numbers, and what does that mean for, the average person in Mongolia?
Yeah, what's fascinating here is just how deep this economic influence seems to run. Our sources mention these really strict regulations. They make it incredibly tough for foreign banks to even get into Mongolia's financial market. So it basically creates this closed shop, protecting the existing big players from real competition, letting them just dominate. And Conbank, the figures are pretty staggering. The reported profit is over 84 million US dollars annually, or as the sources put it, that's over 300 billion Mongolian tugrik, the MNT, based on their 2024 statement. And just for context, this isn't just a big bank. It is the biggest bank in Mongolia by far. It has something like 2.9 million users as of 2023. That's over 80% of the entire population.
Wow, 80%.
Exactly. Now, put that against the fact that the average person earns less than $1,000 a month. It just throws this immense gap into sharp relief, doesn't it? And highlights the incredible level of financial control one single entity has over most people's economic lives. It's not just about money. It's like a chokehold on daily life, on starting businesses, because everything funnels through them.
And if that financial power then extends into controlling the media, like the sources suggest, how does that play out for ordinary citizens? What are the wider effects on society?
Well, that brings us right back to the information flow, doesn't it? The sources indicate that since about 2017, a lot of the media has reportedly been, deliberately used to turn people against each other. Rather than, say, uniting them against the government or focusing on fixing systemic problems together, this constant internal friction, the sources suggest, it's not just chatter. It actually impacts how the country's run.
Sure.
When the media is used to pit people against each other, it just splinters public opinion, weakens any political will, makes it almost impossible to agree on things or hold leaders accountable for big, long-term stuff like infrastructure. You get distracted by blaming each other, not looking at the system. It feeds this cycle of nothing getting done. And this deliberate division, according to our sources, is a big reason why the infrastructure, which was already basic and unplanned, just keeps getting worse. It really makes you, the listener, think. What does it mean for a whole society when the news you get isn't meant to inform or empower you, but actually to distract and divide? It's a powerful tactic, with very real effects on the ground.
Okay, so moving from that flow of information to something more physical, like the flow of traffic and water, our sources highlight another really critical area. In 2024, the government brought in new laws to limit importing used cars. Now, on the surface, that sounds okay, right? Like a move for the environment, maybe tackle pollution, road congestion in the capital, Ulaanbaatar. Seems reasonable enough at first glance.
And that's exactly where the sources dig a bit deeper. This policy, which looks beneficial, has this striking twist, maybe ironic is the word. Instead of actually pushing for what they call a Euro standard cars, better emissions, safety, these same laws are reportedly making it easier for Chinese-made vehicles to enter the market, which kind of directly contradicts the whole stated purpose of improving environmental and safety standards. If the real goal was Euro standards, why open the door for vehicles that might not meet those same tough criteria?
That contradiction does seem pretty significant. Do the sources suggest why this might be happening, especially thinking about the geopolitical situation?
Yes, and the implications, well, they get a bit darker here. There's a suggestion in our sources, quite alarming really, that the Mongolian government might be either working with the Chinese government or maybe under significant pressure from them. And the evidence cited isn't just about cars. It points to the really worrying situation next door in the autonomous region of Inner Mongolia. In Inner Mongolia, there have been reports about banning the use of the traditional Mongolian script in schools, official places. And when people protested these policies, reports say they were met with excessive force by Chinese authorities. So this history, this cultural pressure, combined with this economic shift towards Chinese vehicles, it hints at a bigger geopolitical game, where Mongolia's own policies might be getting influenced by its incredibly powerful neighbor, maybe even sacrificing its own environmental or sovereign goals in the process.
Right, and if we connect that bigger picture, this pressure, potential collusion, plus the media issues, it has real severe impacts on people's daily lives. Our sources say that government money meant for public services, for development, it just seems to be dissipating into thin air. One source even jokes dryly, "We all know it's the politicians," which just shows this widespread public cynicism about where the money actually goes.
Exactly. And this systemic problem leads directly to major infrastructure failures, things people rely on every day. For instance, the sources specifically mention one main water plant and one main electrical plant being shut off. Why? Poor maintenance.
And the consequences of that must be immediate.
Oh, absolutely. Immediate and painful for ordinary Mongolians. These shutdowns mean sudden power cuts, no warning, plunging districts into darkness. Or planned water shutoffs, supposedly to save water, which just disrupts everything, homes, businesses. Can you imagine your power just dying or your water turning off for hours and that becoming just a normal part of your week? It's more than inconvenient. It forces this constant state of, adaptation and uncertainty.
And it's not just the utilities, is it? What about other basics, like roads, drainage?
Precisely. Beyond the power and water, there's this recurring city-wide problem. Severe flooding when it rains. This has apparently been happening for a few years now. And we're not talking small puddles. This is serious flooding. Streets underwater, cars submerged, even first-floor homes getting damaged. It increases pollution, risks people's property. It's this harsh reality that Mongolians, young and old, are apparently just adapting to. To the point where, and this is quite poignant, they find a kind of grim humor in it. Our sources share this detail that many people laugh when their own stand-up comedians call them cockroaches. It's this stark metaphor for their resilience, just navigating these tough, ongoing conditions. It really poses a question for you, the listener. What does it say about a society's resilience when people adapt like this to such environmental and infrastructural hardship? Or maybe is it also hiding a deeper sense of just resignation? It's a powerful image, really tells a story.
That is a powerful image, yeah. That self-deprecating cockroach humor. Does this adaptation, this resilience, according to the sources, does it mask that resignation you mentioned? Or is there still hope underneath?
The sources suggest it's complicated, a mix. The humor definitely shows an incredible ability to cope, to keep going. But there's also this undercurrent of, resignation. When the problems are so big, so systemic, and the people in charge don't seem to be fixing them, people find ways to survive, even laugh about it. But that doesn't necessarily mean they feel optimistic about change happening soon. It's like a societal coping mechanism maybe, but one that really underscores the depth of the challenges they're up against.
Okay, let's pivot now to something completely different on the surface, almost celebratory, but still incredibly complex when you look closer. We have to talk about the Mongolz, the Counter-Strike esports team, their historic achievement. The names, Mizinho, Senzu, Techno 4K, Blitz, and 910, they are now like legends in esports history. They absolutely made history winning their first S-tier trophy. And S-tier in esports, that's the absolute top level of competition. This was huge. Truly monumental, because for 20 years of competitive Counter-Strike, no Asian team had ever won a major title or even an S-level trophy.
Yeah, never.
This success, our sources really emphasize, it marks a massive shift in the global esports world.
And it's more than just a trophy, isn't it? It's proof of incredible skill, dedication, perseverance. It's not just a win out there on the world stage. It's this inspiring rags-to-riches story that has really hit home. These young players, the sources say, they came from underground PC cafes to the world stage. Just picture that journey. From maybe humble local gaming spots, probably dealing with some of those infrastructure issues we just talked about, like power cuts,
Right.
to competing against and beating the absolute best in the world. It's an amazing story of determination and succeeding against the odds. And it's created this huge influence, not just globally, but really importantly within Mongolia. For a country facing so many internal difficulties, this kind of external validation, this achievement by its young people, it's incredibly significant.
Which raises a really important question then. How does this global win by the youth sit alongside the domestic problems we've been discussing? You know, the media control, the infrastructure mess, the generational friction. It feels like such a stark contrast.
It absolutely is.
Yeah.
And the sources point straight to a contradiction playing out right now in the media. There's apparently disagreement or controversy reported about the tax the team owes on their prize money, which is frankly a classic example of that divisive, distracting kind of reporting we mentioned earlier.
Right. Instead of just celebrate.
Exactly. Instead of uniting behind this national success, some media angles immediately jump to taxes, potentially stirring things up instead of fostering pride. And even with this incredible win, there's this significant societal clash happening. Older generations reportedly still tend to see video games as, a waste of time. They criticize the youth. And this is happening even though, or maybe because, this younger generation is inheriting a situation with debt pollution and a declining society in intelligence.
Okay, hold on. Could you clarify what the sources mean by a declining society in intelligence? That sounds pretty strong, potentially loaded.
Yeah, it's really important to clarify that based on the sources. It's not a judgment on individual IQ or the inherent brain power of young Mongolians. Not at all. Rather, our sources suggest this reflects worries about the education system's effectiveness. Is it fostering the critical thinking, the problem-solving skills needed for the country to develop? It also seems to point to this broader trend where maybe easy access to divisive, often unverified information through that controlled media we talked about might be sort of dulling the collective ability to analyze things critically, making it harder for people to have informed debates or demand accountability. So it's framed as a critique of the system's education information, not the people themselves.
Okay, that's a crucial distinction. Thank you. So you have this amazing contrast, this global triumph by young people, showing incredible talent, incredible potential, set against this backdrop of deep internal problems and this clear generational split, where the very thing they succeeded at gaming is often dismissed by older folks. What does that actually mean for a nation when it finds its pride in such wildly different places? Is it hope? Is it division? Or somehow both?
It's undeniably both, I think. That achievement, it's a massive beacon of hope, a source of huge national pride for many, particularly the younger generation who see themselves in that success story. It proves that despite all the internal hurdles, Mongolian talent can compete and win globally. That's powerful. But the generational gap is real. The media focusing on tax debates instead of just the win, those underlying issues of corruption, bad infrastructure, they haven't gone away. It really highlights this kind of fragmented national identity, where different age groups, different parts of society find pride and meaning in totally different things, which makes it really hard to pull together and move forward cohesively. The youth are literally winning on the world stage through gaming, while navigating the societal problems the older generations maybe couldn't or didn't solve.
So bringing it all together, what does this mean for Mongolia? We've seen this truly multifaceted reality emerge from the sources we looked at. It's a nation wrestling with pervasive media control, the tight grip of economic monopolies like Bank, serious environmental issues, collapsing essential infrastructure, forcing its people to adapt with this kind of dark, almost resigned humor, and yet at the same time it's home to world-beating talent shown so clearly by the Mongolz esports team's incredible success. It really is a country of stark contrasts where resilience and struggle live side by side.
Yes, exactly. And it's that interconnectedness that we've seen running through everything today. These aren't separate issues. The big banks potentially enabling media control, which then stifles any real public debate about, say, the environmental damage from bad infrastructure. It all weaves together, shaping the daily lives, the future prospects of Mongolians. It deepens those generational divides we talked about. And it influences where the nation even looks for a sense of identity, its purpose. It's this complex web, really.
Yeah.
Power dynamics, environmental stress, deep cultural shifts, all happening at once, affecting every level of society.
And so, we'll leave you, the listener, with this final thought to consider. Given that undeniable historic achievement by the Mongolz on the world stage, a moment of huge national pride showcasing amazing talent and potential, and then considering the stark internal challenges we've discussed, the media control, the crumbling infrastructure, the economic gaps, how might a nation's ability to achieve such stunning success globally in one specific area, while struggling so deeply in others, reflect on its core identity and its path forward? What does it really tell us about where true power, true influence actually lies in that kind of society? And perhaps what paths towards change might emerge from these contrasts? Thank you for joining us on this deep dive.